Hi everyone. Welcome to Jason's and my online evaluation rough guide. This is a very unofficial guide to conducting online evaluations for English. Of course, we know that you may never have wanted to do online evals and that you feel the way I feel, which is that you have no idea how to do them, and perhaps you even feel a tiny bit of rage. But of course, we are all in the same COVID-ridden, smoke-filled boat. Okay, so some basic processes. A lot of this stuff is very similar to what we do with a face-to-face evaluation. You will have a pre-evaluation meeting. Of course, it's going to be over the phone or over Zoom, but we still have that meeting. And I think in this online setting, this meeting is especially important. It feels especially important to have contact with anyone in some way. So that's going to be important. And at that meeting, as in other meetings, you're going to select the sections and the dates for your observation. And you'll set other important dates too. So the date for when you want the person being observed to give you their classroom observation plan, the date you want them to give you their self-eval, the date for the final meeting that will happen. And one important note is that there's an observation period of 7 days. And the observation period is always Monday through Sunday. So there's not it's not your own choice of days there. Move myself over here. Okay. Adding to your evaluatee's Canvas class. Your evaluatee, you're going to ask them to add you to their class in Canvas, and the role they should assign you there is as an evaluator. There are different roles that you can pick when you add somebody, and there's observer, and then there's also evaluator. And in Jason Mayfield's training, somebody suggested that evaluator is actually a better choice than observer, because when you're in that role, you can see the class as students are seeing it, and for some reason, as observer, you can't do that. Okay, so here's how to add someone. You're going to, in their course in Canvas, they will select people from that blue menu that always appears. Then they will select this plus people button over here on the right. Then they will select evaluator as the role, and they'll put in your email address. I think it's the long one with the numbers and the mail.4cd.edu. Or I think it's that one. Could be wrong though. Okay, and if you're wondering, like, what am I supposed to add myself? No, the answer is no. Your evaluatee is the one who's going to add you, but I think it's good for you to know how to do it, because you're the person being observed might not know how to do it, and that way you can just tell them how to do it. Okay, you also need to decide on student evals, and this is a little bit different from face-to-face. Student evaluations have their own 7-day time period, and it's a time period first when students can access the app, which gets inserted into Canvas, into the current module. And so, for example, you might have established a 7-day observation period for the instructor at the end of October, and then you may have established the 7-day student evaluation period to start at the beginning of November, in a separate 7 days. You are the one who kicks off the process by sending the information, the section number, and the dates to Santino Aguilar in the instruction office. Then he will take care of all the logistics. So he somehow gets the app into Canvas, into the module, and then the app also sends reminders to students through their Canvas email. So once you've pushed the Santino button, you can step back, and the student evals will just happen. Okay, then of course there's the post-evaluation. You're going to complete different forms than you do for face-to-face observations. And, I think it makes sense, because a lot of the questions that you ask about in a face-to-face class don't apply to an online setting. Like, did the instructor write the agenda on the board? Stuff like that. So we will send these out, Jason and I, and but they're also on the United Faculty website, and there's also a link to them here. It looks like these are the PC forms here. But I will add the MAC forms also. Okay, and then of course you're going to meet again with your evaluatee to review the completed eval and discuss the observation. So there are a few things you might be wondering how you do them. We're away from campus, so how do I review previous evaluations? That's something that we often have to do. You may decide you want to come to campus to look up someone's old records. If you do that, be sure that you email Monica in HR first so you can make sure that someone's there to help you out and get you what you need. If you don't want to or you're not able to visit campus, there will be another option. The college has indicated that they're going to create some kind of workaround, but we don't know what that is yet, so you'll just have to stay tuned. Okay, also, how do you get signatures? This is something we're just going to leave up to committees. You may want to find a way for everybody in the group to print, sign, and scan documents in a way that somehow brings all the signatures together on a single page. Or maybe somebody among you knows how to create a signable PDF, in which case you can have everybody sign digitally. Okay, so now this is more about how you do an online observation. When I think about doing them, I feel a little bit of chagrin, which is why I put this birds on here. Okay, once you've been added to the Canvas, you have 7 days, you have your 7-day observation period to do an hour of observing. So what you'll do is lurk around the Canvas site, and things you might observe are static stuff. So you might observe modules, you might read through pages, you might look at old quizzes and past discussions, or even old videos and PowerPoints. Or you might be looking at more dynamic stuff, with things where the students and teachers are engaging with each other, maybe in discussions or other cool activities that your colleagues have found. Or maybe you're able to engage in an activity in another platform. A lot of people are using Canvas as a sort of home space, but then are directing students to leave Canvas and go to other cool sites. So maybe you'll get to participate in that. Or if your evaluatee's course has a synchronous portion, then maybe you can attend part of some kind of synchronous activity, such as a Zoom meeting. Okay, here are a couple examples. Julia, who is observing a 122 class that's completely asynchronous, and she decides that she's going to divide her hour this way. So she spends 20 minutes going through modules from the beginning to the current, just kind of moving rather quickly to see how is the class put together, how do you move from one part of the material to the next part, how do you move students along through that. And then she might spend another 40 minutes just in the current unit looking at the essay prompt and the videos, PowerPoint presentations, and everything that the instructor has created to help students, to support students as they write the essay that ends the unit. Or you might be more like Rigoberto, who's observing a hybrid English 123 class. The material is mostly online, but there's a once-a-month Zoom meeting that's required. And so Rigoberto decides he's going to divide his hour this way. He's going to spend 30 minutes attending one of these Zoom meetings, so engaging with the instructor and with the students, or watching them engage with each other. And then 15 minutes looking at a previous module just to get a feel for the course. And then maybe 15 more minutes reading current dynamic discussion posts for the current module and unit. Okay, and this leads us to part 3. Jason and I thought it was important to address not only the like physical how-tos, but also to talk a little bit about the spirit with which we approach these evaluations in this unprecedented time. It feels important because many of us are teaching online for the first time, but also reluctantly. And so for a lot of us, it's like we became new teachers again. And so we thought that keeping this in mind, keeping in mind that a lot of people are in a new space again, would be a good way to approach the evaluations, and that we're hoping that you would consider approaching them with the same generosity of spirit that you do with it when you observe a new instructor. So here's some questions that you might want to keep in the back of your mind as you observe someone. What is this teacher trying to accomplish? Why did they make the choices they made? And, because a lot of times as new instructors, or maybe I should just speak for myself, when I was a new instructor, I made up a lot of activities that were, I did them for a really good reason, like to show the difference between telling and showing, for example. or to help students feel comfortable. So the reasons that I was doing stuff were good reasons, but the activities that I created were terrible. And so, but it helped me when people could understand where I was coming from and then offer suggestions on how to do that more effectively. It just made me feel more comfortable and like I could grow grow into being a better teacher. Another thing you might want to keep in mind is to be on the lookout for what's working, and why is it working. And then on the flip side of that, what specifically seems to be getting in the way of the effectiveness of a particular activity. So I know one thing for me that I know I do probably all the time is I accidentally turn to my face-to-face toolbox and use techniques that don't work in an online setting because that's what I'm comfortable with, that's what I know, and I don't have another idea. And so that's just one way that if someone saw my classes online, they might see that I'm being ineffective because I'm using some kind of face-to-face choice when I needed to think of something that was that would get the same results but in an online format. Okay, some other good questions. What other kinds of online related pedagogy tips might be helpful to make their efforts more effective? And then what kinds of technology related tips might be helpful to make their efforts more effective? Because some of what we might be coming up against are our own limits, our own technology limits. So for example, somebody might not know all the tools that are available in Canvas or other amazing tools. And so they may be coming up with some kind of crazy workaround. And maybe you know a more effective way for them to get to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. Okay, like I said, this is a very rough guide. We just wanted to give a little bit of how to, and then a little bit about what we hope will be the spirit of approach. But if you really want the nuts and bolts, you might consider reviewing Jason Mayfield's Q&A. There's a link here. Jason Mayfield also sent links for a number of other resources, including a pretty good PowerPoint presentation that offers a lot of detail about conducting online evals. And then if you have really, English specific questions about like matching and who you're with and timelines and who to turn stuff into, all of that, definitely feel free to contact me or Jason Carrick because we're coordinating this semester. Okay. That's it, you guys. Happy evaluating.